Good afternoon, everybody, and good morning, and welcome to this very special broadcast. I'm in New Orleans. No, I'm not. I'm not really in New Orleans. Hello, Libby. Nice to see you.
Hello, nice to see you too. I'm not in New Orleans either, so we're
Oh,
even.
there we go. Whereabouts are you today?
I'm in New York right now. I'm actually on a quarantine vacation visiting my mother-in-law, and I'm on her porch.
Hmm.
And in New York, all the people from Louisiana have to self quarantine for
Yes,
14 days. So I'm just kind of having a little country vacation, a getaway from home.
but it's home we're talking about now. Home is New Orleans. Now, how did you come up with the idea to start a tour company, tour guides?
Oh, well, see, I'm from Louisiana. I'm born and raised. My family's been there for 10 generations, which in the US is a very, very long time. And I love our history and our culture. I was raised to love our history and our culture and learned all these stories. And so I I was a tour guide for other companies, but not quite giving the other companies weren't always giving the type of tours that I like to give, which are small group storytelling tours. So I believe that when you keep the group small, you can accommodate your guests better, and everybody has a better time because they're more engaged and they ask questions and you're able to answer them. And so every tour is different. You just can't do it with a large group. And then the other component is storytelling. I think that a list of names and dates is insightful and interesting, but not for 2 hours. And, so to me, telling the stories of the place is the best way to get people so they can kind of get the culture, to get them engaged with the culture rather than just learning the history. So I started Lucky Bean Tours so that I could give those kinds of tours 4 years ago. And we've done quite well. I'm very, very proud of my little company and my guides that work with me, and my family who made sacrifices, as is going to happen when you start a new business. And we've done pretty well.
Great. Um, yeah, and when you say guides, you've actually not recruited, but you've got together a group of people who know different aspects of the city. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Absolutely. My guides, they are all very likable people. That's number one. But they all have a real passion for New Orleans. They really, really deeply love the city and are constantly interested in learning more about the city and in sharing the city with our visitors. So we just a select few. And in the beginning, for the first, I'd say 2.5, 3 years, it was almost exclusively me giving the tours. And then I recruited my husband. He gives the tours as well now, and found a couple of wonderful guides. And because we are a small fish in a vast pond, New Orleans is tourism is our industry. There's probably close to 300 tour companies in New Orleans. And
Wow.
so it was very slow to develop. It wasn't like we were right out of the gate. So I was able to be selective about the guides that gave Lucky Bean tours, and I really assembled a fantastic team, I have to say.
Okay. Now, why? I mean, basically, at the moment, we're in strange times, aren't we? I mean, it's been very difficult for the last 4 months. How do you see us going out of this? What are you looking forward to changing?
It's going to take some time. I know personally, I have all these emails and Facebook groups and things of tour companies, worldwide, and they're giving projections. And mostly they're saying in the beginning in March, they were saying it would take 18 months to 2 years for tourism to return to 2019 levels. And now, in America at least, the virus doesn't seem to be subsiding all that much. So I think people are hesitant to come here. So I think, I hope that by late 2021, early 2022, we should be back on track. But I think that we have to be realistic and, as much as we can, change with the changing times. And because we can't just hope that it's everything's going to be the same. I think everything in the whole world is going to change, including tourism, from this point on. um some and I think one advantage, if I may find a silver lining, is that people are realizing that they can do things remotely now that they couldn't do before. So there may be more people traveling, once we work through the virus and find a cure or a vaccine. Then I think that people will be able to travel more, because they will be able to work for a couple of hours in their hotel room and then go out and enjoy and explore. So,
Yeah.
perhaps it'll be an exciting new time for everyone.
I mean, for a lot of people, we're used to working from home. You could be anywhere in the world. And as you say, you could work from your hotel and then go out and see the sights. Now, I fortunate to have been around Europe, and I think city guides have an important part to play in actually helping people understand the culture, haven't they, of a given city?
Absolutely, a very important role, um, a very heavy, not heavy responsibility, but an important part of opening up the culture and showing the ways in which our culture is different from wherever you may be coming from, but also showing the ways in which we all have connections.
I mean, New Orleans is very cosmopolitan, isn't it?
It
I
is.
mean, it started off as being French and then Spanish and then part of the USA. So it's had a multicultural history from the beginning.
Absolutely. I think for 302 years of the city's existence, visitors to the city have always remarked on the multicultural aspects that they were kind of not expecting. Travel journals from the 19th century, um, in the 18th century, writing letters back and saying, like, this place, I mean, and sometimes they were appalled at how multicultural and diverse it was. Like, oh my goodness, there's all these people and they're speaking different languages and they're all different colors and they're just running around. We've never seen anything like this. But it definitely gives New Orleans its flavor, because all of those cultures that came together, the French culture, African cultures, heavily represented in New Orleans, Spanish, Caribbean, a little Italian, little German, all kind of coming together and creating this gumbo, this cooking together this culture that is unlike any other place.
It's recognized globally is Mardi Gras. Could you tell us about Mardi Gras? Because it's on our as soon as Mardi Gras starts, it's on our televisions in the UK. So it's important to everybody, is all I'm saying.
Yes, it's important to everyone. Mardi Gras, it means in French, it just means Fat Tuesday, and it's the day before Ash Wednesday. Other cultures around the world celebrate it. They call it Shrove Tuesday, Carnival, and it's worldwide. Definitely, other people have different ways of celebrating it. So when the French first came to Louisiana, this colony, great vast colony of Louisiana, it was a terrible place to be. It was mosquitoes and alligators and snakes and yellow
Yeah.
fever and in the middle of nowhere, so isolated from home. And I think that the French really desired to bring something of home with them, like, let's have one good day. And so actually the first successful arrival of the French, the 1699, Iberville and Bienville, two explorer brothers who were tasked with finding the Louisiana colony and establishing the French presence in Louisiana, arrived on Mardi Gras Day. So, and they named a little island Mardi Gras Island, and then proceeded to the mainland. And that was like the French arrived in New Orleans, in Louisiana, on Mardi Gras Day. So it's a day before Ash Wednesday, when they sort of, because Ash Wednesday, you're supposed to be all prayerful and serious and give things up and, sackcloth and ashes and all of that. But the day before that, you want to get it all out of your system. So you sort of go wild. And we have elevated it to unbelievable heights, as other places, but New Orleans is really known for that.
It's true, and it's become an art form with music, hasn't it? It is a true carnival.
It is a true carnival. Lots and lots. It's free to the public. You don't buy a ticket to Mardi Gras. We have dozens of parades, huge works of art, rolling works of art, a lot of satire, a lot of fun. The children get a whole week off of school. My kids get a week off of school every year for Mardi Gras. And so it starts on January 6th. So it starts on the Feast of the Epiphany, which in New Orleans we call 12th night. And that's the first day of the carnival season, which a lot of people kind of call Mardi Gras season. But technically it's the carnival season. Then it goes all the way up to Mardi Gras Day. And Mardi Gras Day is the last day of carnival season. And at midnight it's over, and then you go into Lent.
Now, you have started during the lockdown time, you started a series of virtual tours. How did they come about, and how can you capture the spirit of a in-person tour in a virtual tour? How have you managed to do that?
Well, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm trying. I've done two things. So I've done the virtual tours, which is me walking around with my iPhone on a selfie stick. And I just kind of make a list in advance of all the areas that I want to hit, sort of focus on a neighborhood. And then I just, on a simple editing program that came with my computer, I would like to try some more fancy stuff with video editing eventually, but I kind of had to pinch hit. So in addition to being a tour guide, I teach a class about New Orleans history and culture to international students. They're au pairs. They're mostly young women, a few guys. There's always like one guy in every group that from all over the world that are living with American families and taking care of American children. And they have this program where they have to get 6 hours of college credit, and they generally like to learn about American cities. So that's the background. So they come to me, and I bring them around town physically on on the streetcars. So in March, they told me this class has to go online. We're not sending our au pairs to New Orleans. We were really a hot spot for coronavirus, and no one was traveling. So I had a couple of weeks to transfer all of the material from the class to online format, and we were using Zoom. And so what I did was I took my iPhone on a selfie stick, and I walked around town, filming myself, and then came home and edited it. And then I decided, hey, I don't necessarily just have to use this for the class. These are tours. I'm a tour guide. I'm giving tours. So I'm, slowly putting them all on YouTube, on my company Facebook channel. And then the other thing that I've been doing is these online storytelling sessions. So one of my guides came up with this idea. A lot of companies are doing it now, but he was the one that first suggested it. Roni said, let's tell our stories online and get people through Zoom, and get people to click on to a Zoom meeting, and we tell them the stories. And he did it more with Google Maps, zooming in, which is a cool idea, kind of zoom into this spot and show and tell the stories. Mine took the form of a lot of Google Slides. I was doing slides. So I would take all these pictures that I had taken myself, plus pictures that I got off the internet, to enhance the story that I was telling. And I was doing them through my website. People would book it like you book a regular tour. And it was okay. I mean, it didn't really take off that much. But in the meantime, I had collected all of these stories and put them in these slide formats. I mean, 100 maybe stories that I had worked a long time putting together to tell to people. And so I decided to start doing them on Facebook Live, sharing my stories that way. I want to stay fresh. I love these stories. They're my stories. Yeah. So I started doing that.
Yeah, no, I caught part of the one you did yesterday, and you are telling stories, and this is basically what live video is all about. It's about people telling their stories. And as you mentioned earlier, you actually are doing personal tours, and they're on YouTube. Shall we just take a look at one and see?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the video up on screen, and I'm going to put it full screen and turn our microphones off.
Okay. How do I turn my...
Right, okay, and we're muted.
We're going to check out the Arts and Warehouse District.
The whole neighborhood, of course, is called the Warehouse District because this used to be almost all warehouses. The river is just a couple of blocks away, so people were shipping in their goods and they were warehousing them in this neighborhood. And then in 1984, we had the World's Fair here, and they sort of transformed. This was the area where the World's Fair was held, and they started transforming all of these old warehouse spaces into condos and art galleries, and we've opened several museums down here, so it's a really, really fun, really eclectic neighborhood. This row of 1820s townhouses is called Julia Row. This is the Contemporary Art Center, or CAC, and like the name implies, more focused on contemporary art, modern art, a lot of performances. They have a film festival here every year. This is the Ogden Museum of Southern Art, one of my favorite museums. This is the Civil War Museum. It was originally called Confederate Memorial Hall. It's a beautiful old building. It's a great museum. This really large complex over here is the World War II Museum, the National World War II Museum. The reason that we have the World War II Museum in New Orleans is because the Higgins boats, which were those kind of boxy boats that went onto the beaches, that stormed the beaches during World War II, were manufactured right here in New Orleans. So originally we had the D-Day Museum here, but it was so popular they made it into the National World War II Museum. And it's definitely something you should see when you come here.
We'll stop the video now,
so
and we'll return.
One corner.
There we are. So one of the things that can be done is you can use your YouTube videos, and you could be picture in picture and take questions from people. So
that's a great idea.
You use the video as the backdrop and the starting point, because you already created the content. You could reuse it. And the other thought that occurred to me, because I'm obviously coming from the Be Live side, is that you say, I looked at the website and you have 12 guides. Two possibilities. One is that you could use Be Live to interview the guides, and they could tell their stories and their passion about New Orleans. And the second thing is you can give the camera over to them, so that they could actually, you could produce a show using your Be Live account, and they are the host. Yeah. So look,
that's a wonderful idea.
Well, it's basically it's keeping everybody in contact with each other as well, isn't it? Because
yes,
the one thing that happens is, you say, when you started, you ran most of the tours, then your husband joined you, and now you've got a group of 12 of you. Keeping in touch with everybody, you can actually do that using Be Live, and allow them to tell their stories as well, because what they're actually doing is promoting their tours. Yeah, it's a chance for them to share their knowledge and expertise and passion. And just a thought. Right. Okay. So.
Excellent.
Now, where do we go from here? Whether we can go any direction you like. Is there anything you'd like to? What's the? It's a crude question. What's the best thing about New Orleans?
The spirit, which is sort of an overall. When people come to New Orleans, especially people like international travelers who are going all around the country, they immediately feel a difference. Like, this place is different than other places. You know, I'm not being all woo woo. I mean, you don't even have to be one of, you can just be someone that isn't into that kind of thing. But when you arrive here, so people ask me sometimes, I've been asked that question, what do people find interesting about this city? What do they love about the city? And I will say that the main thing is that they're always surprised, because New Orleans has a brand. Whether before anybody talked about branding, New Orleans had a brand. It was whatever your perception of it was. So it was either Mardi Gras, or it was drunken debauchery on Bourbon Street, or it was Scarlett O'Hara, Gone with the Wind, hoop skirts, or whatever, steamboat gambling, Mark Twain. Everybody had an idea of what New Orleans was like, for better or for worse. So sometimes it was this, really the Sin City. And when they arrive here, they realize that it is actually all of those things plus a lot more that they didn't even know that it was. And so I think a very common thing that I hear is, is surprise that we have as much as that we do. And so that would probably be the best thing about New Orleans is it's a unique place, unlike any other place. It's and it offers so many wonderful surprises. I'm from here. I'm from New Orleans, and I lived my whole life there, and I'm a tour guide, and I am very, very interested, and I still have a list of things that I want to do that I haven't gotten around to, because we also have the Cajun culture. We have, so it's the city of New Orleans, jazz music, the Afro American history that we have, which is fascinating. We have great food, fantastic cuisine. We have the swamps. You can go on a swamp tour. You can go on a plantation tour. So it's more than just Bourbon Street. In fact, you can not even go to Bourbon Street and have a wonderful time.
I'm there. I'm there in spirit. I'm with you.
You are.
Comments coming from Kelly. Kelly's in Sarnia in Ontario. And Kelly's saying they have walking tours here in Canada. Sarnia has one, and Toronto Island, and they show historical landmarks and stuff and bring groups of people with them. Yeah. But
that's great. We have I love when I get Canadians on my tour. And first of all, Canadians love to travel and they love to walk. And we have a lot of shared history with places in Canada because of our French history. And we can make lots and lots of connections. The founders of our city were from Montreal.
And Kelly is back, and Kelly's saying they both have Facebook pages and book events for the dates of the walks. Now you've got to, if I just segue for a moment, I'm going to bring up your website. Give me a second. I'll do that in the background. But yeah, I mean, there's a shared history there between Canada and New Orleans. Because you get people from all around the globe visiting, don't you?
We do. We were an international destination. We had 13 million visitors in 2018. So a lot of people come from all over the world. It's a pleasure to share our stories. And like I talked about, people expecting different things when they come here. People do different things when they come here. So there are people that do come here to get drunk. We have this, Bourbon Street is this world famous strip where people get to walk and drink. And in New Orleans, there's no closing law for bars. So bars can be open 24 hours. You can walk on the streets with a cocktail, with a drink, which in most of America you can't do. I think in Las Vegas, in one area of Las Vegas, you can, but other than that, you can't. I mean, before coronavirus, now states are like letting people sell booze and walk around, just anything to make money. So some people just come for that. It's true. But a lot of people come for tours, for history, to learn about this fascinating place. And I love them all because they're supporting our city and providing the impetus to keep the culture going. But I especially love the ones that take tours.
Brilliant. Now, we're going to, if you could take us on a tour of your website, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share, and I'm going to go over to your website, and Lucky Bean Tours, I've got the website, and I should have it in my studio. I can bring it up on screen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to be in the background. I'll press the buttons, and when you say go here, I'll attempt to go here.
Okay.
But you're going to be picture in picture with the website. Okay. Just a minute. We'll get this set up, and we're good to go. I just want to make one final change to make sure that we can see a little bit more. And we go there, and that's it. Perfect.
Okay. Well, this is really exciting to me because I've done about 25 or 30 Be Live Facebook Lives. That's all I've done. That's how I found Be Live, because I was trying to do Facebook Lives telling my stories, and I don't know any of the bells and whistles. So this is really, thank you so much for showing me all of these things that you're doing, putting video and putting my website up. Yes, that's my website. Small Groups and Great Stories is sort of the tagline that I came up with let people know what we're about and how we stand out differently. And so the French Quarter tour here on the left is probably the most popular one, because the French Quarter is the oldest neighborhood in the city. So it was originally the entire city. When the city was established in 1718, it was just a small little outpost in in the middle of. So that cathedral that you just that's on the top of that page, if anybody's seen the Disney princess movie, The Princess and the Frog, there are that's the clock that's counting down where she has to kiss the frog or the frog has to kiss her. I can't remember exactly how, but there's a that moment before when it's counting down to midnight. That's the clock. And then there's a lot of pictures there. This website, I put together my first website 4 years ago when I opened, because I couldn't afford to pay anyone to put a website for me. So I went on YouTube, and this guy and I went step by step through a YouTube video. It was like a 2-hour video that took me about 4 days to get through, just pausing and creating my own website. But then, websites quickly get obsolete, where then it's harder, they're running slower because you have too much stuff kind of connected to it. And so Fair Harbor, which is the company that is my booking system, Fair Harbor, they built this website for me. So this one right here, I mean, I have enough experience to go in, like I put that banner across the top and I supply the pictures and kind of tweak the text, but it's managed by Fair Harbor. Okay, so the Garden District tour, that's the one in the middle there. The Garden District is a completely different neighborhood. So the French Quarter is funky, eclectic, loud, musical, colorful. And the Garden District is really, really quite lovely and serene. In fact, there's a YouTube video of me doing my Garden District tour as well. It's in the early American period, after the Louisiana Purchase and we became American, and Americans started to come up to see the grand houses you can see in those pictures up there. The Americans, so very big. The French Quarter is more of the Caribbean style, townhouses, bright colors, houses that are close together and way up to the street, because that was the European model. Whereas the Americans wanted to go big, how Americans are, like, go big or go home. And so all these people from the East Coast that came to Louisiana in the early 19th century to get wealthy off of sugar and cotton plantations and steamboat and shipping created a neighborhood for themselves that we call now the Garden District. So that tour is a lot of history and a lot of really, really incredible architecture. And of course, beautiful gardens, beautiful yards. And then that picture there is Commander's Palace. Commander's Palace is a world famous, wonderful restaurant. So yeah, that's the Garden District. And then if we go back to the tours, the one on the right there is the Two Cemeteries tour. So we're famous also for our cemeteries, believe it or not, because we don't bury people in the ground in Louisiana. Partly because it probably started because of our high water table, because they were burying people in the ground, but they would kind of float up. And it's pretty gruesome. We don't want that to happen. We want you to stay where you are. We love you, RIP, but stay there. So they started in the European style. We didn't come up with this idea. They were kind of copying the Catholic cities in Europe. They were creating these above ground tombs, and in doing so, come up with an ingenious way to get 80, 100 people in one family tomb in an area of ground where you would only be able to put 1 or 2 if you're burying in the ground. So people do go on cemetery tours, and St. Louis number 1 and number 2 are 2 of the oldest cemeteries in the city, and they're beautiful and poignant because they're crumbling. Definitely, they're not in great condition necessarily, so we're very careful as we walk around, and we encourage lots of picture taking. But also in each one of those there are stories about the person who lies there, and we're telling their stories, and it's an excursion through our past and our culture and the roots of our culture when we go to the cemeteries. And I think we have a kids and family tour. I think that's the other one that's listed on there. And that one, our guides, here's some of our fabulous guides. There's me. and there's my husband, and then Jackie is wonderful. Josh, it's Joost or Jos, and but he's Belgian, but he goes by Josh. He says we can't pronounce his name actually. And then Peak is fabulous, and Loretta, oh, just so much fun. Chrissy does the kids tour, and there she is with her little boy, who is an assistant. Topher is our junior assistant tour guide, and then Suzanne is a world traveler and explorer who gives also, she specializes, she gives a Jewish history tour and a women's history tour as well. And then Elliot down there at the bottom is our young thirsty for knowledge, a musician. He's in on everything. And Roni is from Israel originally, and he lives in New Orleans, and he actually does some of his own virtual tours as well. And he's the one that came up with the idea for us to give virtual tours. So he's always in there learning. He does Jewish history tours as well, plus regular New Orleans tours in Hebrew. So he's an interest. And then Carmel, boy, she's been working hard. She works in a hospital, so she's been on the front lines during this whole thing, and she absolutely loves the cemetery. She does wonderful French Quarter, but I know her heart is in the cemetery. And then Tish is just a really, really fun lady, another Louisiana native, who just has such a humorous and delightful way of looking at our stories and telling our stories. So yeah, that's my crew. I can't wait to see them, for us to all work together again.
Wonderful. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to hide the web page, and it's then back to me and you. Well, I've learned a lot, I have to say. I've got to say thank you, Libby. That was most fascinating half hour. Now, if you put the web link in afterwards, I know Kelly has put the link into the video.
Okay.
I know you. So that's, everybody else can follow the video to watch the replay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Right. Okay. So, final words from you about New Orleans, and how you're looking forward to resuming the real tours.
15 years ago, we suffered from Hurricane Katrina, and that was something that happened just to us and didn't happen to the rest of the world. So what's happening now is different in that it's happening to the rest of the world. However, we know how to recover, and it's devastating when we go through some tragedy like we're going through now, or from Hurricane Katrina. But every time we come close to losing the things that we love, we give it more attention, and we spend more time learning and more time embracing our culture and what makes us special. And I know that I have. So I've learned even more. I've done so much reading and so much research, so that when people do come to visit us, and you will come to visit us, New Orleans will be open. There are direct flights from Heathrow to New Orleans. You don't even have to switch. There will be, there have been, that we will be even more, if that's possible, even more in love with our culture and excited about telling the stories of our culture than we were before, which I didn't think was possible, but we are. So every time you feel that it's threatened, you work harder to preserve it. And so we'll be back. We'll be open for business. We'll be happy to show you around. But in the meantime, we'll be telling our stories online.
Wonderful. As I say, thank you, Libby. To everybody who's watched live, everybody catches the replay, thank you. If you want to know anything about New Orleans, then Libby's going to be putting the links in afterwards. You can contact her. You can ask her any questions you like, and you must visit and when you actually visit New Orleans. I'm sure I'll do the same. Thank you for watching. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.